Welcome to this series of interviews. I'm talking to people who faced various kinds of changes in their lives, and we're interested to find out what happened, how they dealt with it, and how it affected them. So welcome, Raymond Holt,
Hi.
Agnentis Partners, and indeed one of our partners. So very good to speak to you. Raymond, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I founded Agnentis Partners just over 5 years ago. I'm a trained finance director and coach, and I work with predominantly small business owners to build businesses with their families so they can have the kind of fulfilled life that they aspire to have.
And what got you started on that? And that I think change what you want to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well, I've always had a very personal leaning towards working with small business. Even when I've worked in industry, I was kind of FD for small businesses in a big business environment. But I also used to talk to all the business owners and partners I work with from a personal context. What does this mean for you? Forget about numbers. What does the context mean for you? And I think from there, it's kind of just snowballed into, I got bored with corporate life and thought I would try it for myself.
So great. And so tell us about the change that happened 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's at the time I was actually in the process of developing a load of events, I was getting going in a really decent place. I had a team working with loads of partners, and it's 2.5 years ago, because I was asking my wife about it earlier. My dad has been unwell for, 10 years now, I suppose, on and off. But 2.5 years ago, literally came back from my niece's wedding, to find that he went into a tailspin health-wise, which ultimately, when I was on a path of growing the business with staff, building partners, just literally the day before my dad went into major downturn, I'd literally had a partners meeting with 15 people, how we were going to work together. And it really did change my outlook on what it means around family, and how trying to build a business and work effectively with all the family pressures that go with that, especially with an elderly parent who was in seriously poor health.
Gosh, that sounds really, really difficult. I mean, a pretty major upheaval. So what did you decide to do?
Well, I kind of lived through it early on, through to the summer, and when we were away on holiday, Luann and I, my wife, we had a long conversation about what it actually meant, what it was going to actually be like when we went back, because I was in Southeast Asia at the time, and I'd literally spent the best part of 3 weeks on the phone to my dad's care. My dad basically had a major operation before I'd gone out to Vietnam. Literally came out of hospital 2 days before I went on holiday. And I spent 3 weeks on the phone to the carers and him, and really didn't have much of a break. So Luann and I were talking very clearly about what does that actually mean for what I'm trying to do, where I am where I was at that time, and what it would mean for us. And to be fair to my dad, whether we thought it would actually get any better or not. So whilst we were away, it became, well, we need to go back to just being me, because having a team around me and partners and who were kind of trying to build something was going to be not possible. Luann and I have always worked in the basis that one person in the pool, one person outside the pool, to ensure that when that person comes out, there's support. So I've never asked Luann to actually, other than have my dad over here on occasions, to really actively be involved with my dad. I've always asked Luann to support me to do that. So I cut it back to the bare bones, back to myself, spent the next 12 months kind of clearing the decks to give myself a chance to come back. Thankfully, I did, because literally in that year, my dad went into hospital 3 times for operations. And to give you some idea, some degree of context, this is the first November in 4 years that my dad has not been in hospital for a major operation of some sort. So it's kind of been rebase everything, get everything to a place where we got some balance and it works, because I'm part carer as well for my dad. So if anything happens with my dad, I am the conduit of all conversations and all care, and then find a way for what I'm doing to fit alongside and into that, rather than try and find a way, which is what I suppose when I was working and trying to do this the first time around, I was almost trying to fit my dad into everything I was doing. It was just becoming way too much. And I literally turned it around the other way, said, what does my dad need? What can I do effectively? What support do we need to work? And then from a business context, what does that mean from that I can and cannot do right now? What support do I need? And therefore, as a family, how do we bring those two things together?
Gosh, that's a really tough situation to be in. Really tough. There must have been some quite low points.
There's been a few, and I think so. I've been married 22 years, and we've been through some interesting times. And I think it's been just been able to talk to Luann about it. And to be fair, the boys, I've got 2. Well, one's a teenager, they're 14 and 11, and they love their granddad. So when they see what we're trying to do, and I believe in your children watch you and the way you care for your parents, I think just us being together collectively as a unit has made it easier. And my dad loves my wife and the kids, so just actually trying to find that balance has been quite good. I think I've also been very lucky in the sense I've had clients who are kind of look at me like, well, you shouldn't really be talking to us right now, should you? It's almost like, why don't you go and deal with what you need to go and deal with? And I'm like, well, maybe I should just deal with what the challenge is here. No.
But it sounds as though the business that you have built is the business that really, you're living the business, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because, if it's about how business owners manage, the business and their personal life, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the last 2 or 3 years has been a practical life bombardment of what it actually, and I think that's one of the things, Hilary, for me, is whilst I've always believed it and always lived like that, I think it's only really it's a baptism of fire, isn't it? When day in, day out, when you're not sure when the phone rings, whether what the phone's ringing for. I think it's just kind of create out of that has come a much stronger me and the business and us as a family. And that's therefore almost makes it's always been authentic, what I do and the way I am. But those who know me and have been around me for a while really do appreciate how authentic it actually is. And when I turn and say, this is how I work and this is why I work this way, it's because you've got to, you don't have to understand, but it's a case of appreciate that actually that's the challenge that goes on here.
Yes.
So when we're working together, we understand the context in which we're working together and that we will support it. I used to say in corporate life, Hilary, stand shoulder to shoulder, because it's a long way to the floor if you fall and no one's next to you. And I think in business, as businesses working together and working in partnership, it's important. That's really important, especially for me.
Yes, and I can see that. And something we've talked a lot about is purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, that's how we met through the Bob School and their focus on business purpose. And it sounds as though this is really your kind of foundational purpose, isn't it, of your life at the moment?
Yes.
Is looking after your dad.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like the last 9 months have been kind of, in some ways, a bit normal. And that's really hard for people to understand, because when everything's happened, it kind of feels like, well, no, the world has kind of almost stopped spinning, and it's actually come to a degree of normality that I've been living with for the last couple of 3 years in particular. And I've kind of looked at it and gone, actually, it's given an opportunity to rebase and come out stronger. Whereas I would have said 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, I was sort of sitting there going, oh my God, what am I going to do here?
Yes, yes. And I'm sure you're not alone in terms of, finding something in sort of the pandemic and lockdown that has started to kind of create some sense, create some direction and a way forward. I think also that what has happened to you will resonate very strongly with a lot of people. I don't know you very well, but in the time that I've known you, you've never mentioned any of this. And people don't talk about it.
No.
But the reality is there are a lot of people who are needing to look after parents or, care for somebody, and that takes up a large part of their lives. And so I was just wondering, what advice would you give them? That, from what you've learned about your own life, what's helped you, what's enabled you to survive and thrive?
One of the things which I think it's really made us as a family look at is what our roles are. Be really, really clear about what I do as a husband, a father, and as a son, and as me as an individual in terms of building the business, and actually be really clear about what matters most at any point, at a point in time. Set some general principles around how we work as a family. And I think we've always worked like this. It's just really it's kind of been on speed really for the last 3 years. And I think just being clear about what our roles are, what good looks like, and what our priorities are. So because of what's been going on, we designed a family clock that decides by each period of the year what is the most important thing for us. And almost don't be too hard. I think the one thing I've had to learn really much is not to be too hard on myself when I'm not able to do something, especially when it comes to trying to do something. So my dad needs to go to the hospital. I've got to take him to hospital, but I've got this other thing that's sitting there and it's a priority. So actually not to be too hard, but be clear about what the priorities are for you and your family, and then look at your business priorities and then bring them in to the family, rather than go with I need to do this with my business, and actually talk to your family about business. Because one thing that always makes me laugh is the first question my dad always asks me is, how's the business? And I'm like, do you know what, Dad? It's kind of not relevant in this, but for him it's important that he doesn't see me lose what's important to me as well.
It sounds like a very loving family, I have to say.
Yeah, we have a teenage son. It works sometimes.
Yes. Teenage sons are hard work.
Yeah, good fun.
You paint a picture of tremendous support.
Yes.
And willingness to work together in a very difficult situation to make it work for everybody.
Yes, and I think that's where I think that by engaging those around us, whether that be in the business or in family, and being really clear about what is happening.
Yes.
And even when I had people working with me, and when I had partners, it wasn't that they didn't know what was going on. They knew exactly what was going on. It was just becoming to the point, they knew it was coming to the point where it couldn't continue the way it was going.
Yes.
So then, therefore, everybody understands at that time what needs to be done to make sure that everything works and whether it can work like that.